So here are the numbers. In all, there were 7 B-2 bombers that took an 18-hour flight into the target area. No shots were fired at the US on the way. More than 125 military aircraft were involved. Peter Hegseth had also confirmed the use of decoys. But along with that, he also accepted and said, Pentagon said more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles, around 25 to 30, were launched from US Navy's destroyers at 6:40 p.m. Eastern, that is 2:10 a.m. Iran time. The lead B-2 dropped 2 MOPS, GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator. MOPS is massive ordnance penetrator. So dropped 2 of them, these bunker busters, on the Fordo nuclear facility. There were other locations also in Fordo that were where the B-2s were used. 12 MOPS in all across the 3 facilities. That is something which Peter Hegseth also led on. Now, this comes at a time when Iran has come out and said we've suffered only superficial damage, Professor Brahmacharlani. There is also this whole narrative of Iran continuing with resilience. That's what the IRGC is saying. We will continue our nuclear program with resilience. How do you read that? Obliterated versus continue with resilience.
Iran is not going to capitulate as Trump has demanded. He has threatened more devastation against Iran unless Iran accepts peace on US terms. That capitulation will not happen. Iran will hit back, and will hit back not by taking on the US directly, but by mounting insurgent attacks, proxy attacks, entangling the US in the Middle East more deeply. This conflict will not end with the bombing of 3 major facilities in Iran. Let's be clear on that. I'm very troubled by Indians cheering the Israeli and American attacks on Iran and arguing that, that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon when there is no evidence by any objective agency that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, even the Israelis have claimed, Professor Chelani, that they were on the verge of developing at least 15 nuclear weapons. Had Israel waited, they would have had 15. Yeah.
Israel has been saying that Iran is on the brink of going nuclear for the last 20 years. You go back 20 years, the same line has been repeated over 20 years now. But Iran is not Israel's immediate neighbor, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Developing even a crude nuclear device, if Iran does, or develops even a couple of weapons.
But Professor, we've discussed this also, that Israel does not have a doctrinal position that it wants to wipe out Iran. But the vice versa holds. Iran's doctrinal position is they want to wipe out Jews from Israel and Jews.
No, that again, I'm sorry, but that again is Israeli viewpoint, Israeli propaganda, if I could say that. I don't think Iran says that. In fact, the IAEA in its report released a day before the Israeli attack quotes Iran's top officials as saying that the use of nuclear weapons by any country, by any Muslim country, would be a violation of Islamic law. That's contrary to what Israel has been saying, right? This is from the IAEA report.
Correct.
But what I'm concerned about is this, Anand, is that we are cheering the Israeli and the American bombing of Iran, and saying that it's pertinent and correct for Israel and the US to fulfill their military and geopolitical objectives. But the same people have a different stance on Operation Sindoor. Why was it terminated after 3 days without achieving any tangible objective? Why did we let Pakistan off the hook so abruptly? I think there are these double standards.
The American hypocrisy and double standards and the Western hegemony and perhaps the quasi-terrorism that many call is different. A British historian who's no longer there has chronicled this, that post-World War II, maximum number of nations destroyed have been because of American interference. And no country has profited because of American. We are not getting into those details. The idea is that which nation has planted proxies with the the intent of devastation of the other. Hamas, Hezbollah, all of them doctrinally take a position of destruction of Jews in Israel. We will continue with this conversation, rolling coverage here on CNN News 18 on the Middle East turmoil, the Israel versus Iran war, where America has interfered and jumped into it, bombing nuclear facilities in Iran.